Can we get a pie rep on the guys on final? I'm getting one now. The last two downwinds was moderate to severe rime ice, heavy precip. We're thinking this stuff is going to be east of us in the next 20 minutes. I gotta put a ground stop in. We need 10 miles in trail on the dog's route. 10 miles in trail.
The NAS is a complex network of systems and aircraft. Things move quickly in the NAS. Real-time decision-making is dependent on your effective communication skills. The Ntml is a single system for logging, automated coordination, and communication of information and initiatives. It enables all facilities, including the Air Traffic Control System Command Center, to share knowledge about conditions throughout the NAS.
So with the Ntml entries, that gives you the ability to effectively communicate with the entire NAS through a simple message.
The data that's entered into the Ntml is disseminated very widely, both to airlines, operations personnel, and to the command center.
Data entries via the Ntml are being used to make on-the-spot decisions that affect safety and efficiency across the entire system. However, the Ntml's usefulness as a decision-making tool is only as good as the data that goes into it. Timely, accurate, and complete data is essential for all stakeholders.
Ntml entries are critically important for several reasons. One is it's the official log from FAA facility to FAA facility. They are scraped and used and go to the outside world through SWIM, System-Wide Information Management. They're used to electronically coordinate and approve, adjust, modify, cancel restrictions from one facility to another.
Most TMCs and people that use the system don't realize that a lot of people are eyes on what's going on. And one of those people now are the customers.
It's a huge asset. It's what the FAA is seeing. For us to see the exact same thing FAA controllers or the command center is seeing is a tremendous benefit for us, just for the pre-planning and also the tactical portion of the operation.
SWIM, or System-Wide Information Management, is the data sharing backbone of the NAS. Ntml entries are immediately captured by SWIM and shared with stakeholders, enabling them to make better informed decisions. The networked system provides real-time, accurate flight surveillance, weather, and aeronautical information. Users include the FAA, airlines, research institutions, and other stakeholders.
And we're mining the SWIM feeds and finding operational uses for it. Having that information real time is going to move us so forward in one of the really most important parts that we can help control.
It's very important for other facilities throughout the NAS to put departure delays in as timely as possible. That way we can, at the command center, can help you as soon as possible. That way industry will know as soon as possible and they can make decisions that help the entire NAS.
It's a tool that we have and that the facilities have at their fingertips to pass information as easily as, sending a text message through your phone.
So timely will be as soon as the situation is known.
So with Ntml, with departure delays and stops, all this information, if you're not entering it in, no one knows what's going on at the surface.
When you submit a departure route closure on the Restrictions tab, the Command Center and industry partners use this data to make real-time decisions about how to appropriately handle the constraint. During severe weather, the Command Center relies on de-icing information submitted via the Ntml to base traffic management strategies off of. Unavailable gates, surface gridlock, backed up taxiways can all result from de-icing, and strategies to ensure the airport is not overloaded must be enacted. Using the ICE tab in Ntml allows for the appropriate dissemination of information to the Command Center and through external-facing platforms such as SWIM,
which the airlines use to make operational decisions on a minute-by-minute basis. As you put entries into the Ntml, Those entries are fed immediately out into these other sources, and anybody who has access to that information can be using it to make timely decisions that impact their operations.
And having that Ntml information is a great step forward in that, and us having that knowledge.
Time-based metering also needs to be captured in the Restrictions tab. As with route closures, this advises the command center and the airlines that TBM operations have been enacted.
Ntml data has influence over a wide set of decisions. First and foremost would be reroutes, whether in a swap event, trying to adjust to a terminal fixed restriction or closure, mile and trail or reroute restrictions on the en route environment.
When entering a restriction due to severe weather, ensure the severe weather button is checked. This allows the severe weather specialist at the command center to receive the appropriate information and not implement TMIs that could contradict or adversely affect the original request.
A good example of this is fixed closures during a severe weather event. If we can see that a certain route is closed, we may be able to find an alternate route for that flight, and we can do that before the flight has gotten into the line.
An FEA, or Flow Evaluation Area, must be attached to a restriction of 25 miles in trail or greater in order for it to be evaluated and approved by the command center. This allows all stakeholders, from the command center to airline SOCs, to be notified of the potential delay information and adjust their operational decisions.
Ntml entries are very important because they're our first line of communication with all the facilities in the NAS. If the tower sends in an Ntml entry and tells us what's going on, it just helps us do our job better to help them.
Now, miscellaneous does cover exactly what it means, all those things that we don't have a tab for, but most tabs are in there, such as de-icing, airport arrival, runways that are being used, restrictions such as mile and trail.
Certain entries are required by FAA Order 7210.3. They include traffic management initiatives, constraints that may impact the NAS, arrival, departure, and en route display status, icing, de-icing, anti-icing. The miscellaneous template is only used when no other template applies. Ntml entries categorized only as miscellaneous are not distributed appropriately to the command center and other users.
I think the best thing we could do to improve our data collection through Ntml is to standardize the way that each entry is made. When entries are made through different tabs for the same types of entries, they aren't categorized the same way when they go out into these other platforms.
Some users will select volume as the causal factor when inputting a restriction and delay. However, volume should only be selected when the airport is in its optimum configuration and no other impacting condition exists. Whenever there is another factor limiting capacity, that causal factor should be selected in favor of volume. Ask yourself, what caused the volume? For example, if thunderstorms are causing the rerouting of traffic and increased volume that requires mitigation, the causal factor should be weather and not volume. This will provide a clearer picture of what is going on for other TMUs and stakeholders.
The information we get in the Ntml allows us to serve our customers, both the passengers on the aircraft and the customers that transport commerce on our aircraft.
The only time this causal factor should be used is when no other causal factor applies. This allows for appropriate binning of information and paints the most accurate picture of the events that are occurring. But when this causal factor must be used, remember to enter a description of the impacting condition into the free-form text area. If it is left blank, those reviewing the information do not know what is happening in the field facilities. If it is left blank, those reviewing the information do not know what is happening in the field facilities in real time and for future analysis.
So in addition to the tactical use of the data, we're also doing a lot of post-op analysis, analyzing the data to understand not only what happened, but why it happened.
Those shift summaries go all the way up to the Director of Air Traffic Services.
Shift summaries in the Ntml provide a high-level review of the day's events, as well as an important tool in the development of future plans. The summarization includes all major events that occurred during a shift, including any delays and weather impacts that took place. Review the entire log for events that are worthy of calling attention to in post-event analysis before submitting your entry. A thorough summary results in more effective review of the previous day's events and provides an assessment of possible strategies to handle similar situations in the future. Up-to-date NAS data is more valuable than ever, used by all stakeholders and not just for next day review. Immediate, actionable value depends on the timely, accurate, and complete input of data into the Ntml. Your speed and attention to detail enhance the real-time safety and efficiency of the National Airspace System.
So I guess if there was one thing I could say to a TM out in the NAS is just that as soon as you get a moment to make that Ntml entry, whether it's a runway change or a mile and trail or something that's going to help everyone do their job, take that moment and just make that Ntml entry so that we can all stay on the same page and help each other out.